Good evening. Live video started, I think. Okay, here we go. Good evening. Now it's telling me live video started. So we are here. It's Monday night, 7 o'clock. How are we all feeling? Well, I'm going to say this evening here. It's this evening in the UK, and it's a lovely sunny evening. You have to excuse the look. Just got out of the sea because it's a beautiful evening. You might be dialing in from somewhere else. If you're here on the live, just say hi, just type live, just so I know you're here and you can hear me all right. If you're watching this on the replay, then just type replay so I know you're watching on the replay. If you're watching live, you can make comments, ask questions. If you think you've got something of value to add value. And it's exactly the same on the replay. Although if you can, like if you ask comments, ask questions now, I'll do my best. Hey Ellie, hey Justine, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? If you've got questions, you can ask them. If you want to sit in the background and just listen, that's cool. Even if you're watching the replay, you can ask questions and I'll come back to it. Or you can DM me. If you don't want to ask questions, hey Colleen, hey Bev and Ed, Glenn, how you doing? I'm going to talk to you later. If you've got questions you want to ask me that comes up in the live and you think that you don't want it to be out in front of the group or anything like that, then just send me a DM and we'll sort it out in there. Which brings me on to another point. Remember, this is a private group, but the things you share are, open to anybody in this group, which we do try and monitor quite carefully. But if it's something that you don't want to share, remember that we only ask for and give our hearts to the fact that everybody keeps everybody's information confidential. So yeah, doing great as well, Glenn. So if you're watching this and you want to share something, if it's confidential, you can DM me. But other than that, if you get involved and ask questions, you're probably thinking the same thing that other people are, but I might be too shy to ask. It's like, when you're at school and you didn't want to put your hand up and then someone else put their hand up and the teacher went, yeah, and you think, oh, I was thinking that. It's no different, which we'll get onto negative self-talk, actually. That's quite a good segue. We'll get on to that in a second. So tonight we're going to talk about negative self-talk and a few ways to... a little bit about what it is, but I think we perfectly understand what negative self-talk is and a few ways that we can maybe break it down. I will go for... I'll try and I'll answer comments on the fly if we've got any. But if it gets too many, I will... And I'll do a bit at the end. I'm aiming to be... I'm trying to bring these down to 20 minutes so they're easily digestible on the replay. But I haven't done very well on that so far, so I need to work on that. What else notes did I make here? If there's anybody on, last week we had a 24-hour challenge. So this week I'm flipping it. Last week we were talking about being judgmental. Hi, Colleen. Last week we talked about being judgmental, which obviously you having thoughts in your head about other people, and there was a 24-hour challenge. I set a 24-hour challenge for people who watch this and people on the replay to see, like, how long do you last without judging somebody? I did have some feedback. Well, actually, it was posted in the group. A couple of people posted that they didn't last very long. That's perfectly normal, right? All it is about awareness. So I thought this week I'd flip it and say, well, okay, we're very good at, not very good at, we all have the tendency to judge others, but what's the equally and maybe potentially more toxic, excuse me, is the things that we say to ourselves internally, as in on negative self-talk and how we talk to ourselves. And I think I mentioned last week on a previous live, these things have, without going too deep into it, these things have real physical... A thought can have a real physical effect on your body, and I don't want to get too way off into the weeds with this because I could go off like in a completely different direction. But a thought can have a physical, a negative or a positive thought can have a physical effect on your body. Um, and like I said, without getting too deep with it, a negative thought has a negative charge. It has a negative effect on the cells in our body. Our body is an massive electrical conductor, or massive battery. Um, and so a negative or a positive thought do have physical effects on our body. So even, yeah, even emotional, even you're right, Glenn. Thoughts have emotional anchors. Yeah, definitely. Um, even the electrical charge of a negative thought that we're having about ourselves can have a physical effect on the body. So it's actually quite important. And we're relating this to confidence, right? So if you're having as well, if you're having this continuous negative dialogue in your head about yourself, then you can't expect to be completely confident. Now I'm not saying this 100% of the time, right? Everybody has that moment of weakness, that moment of lack of maybe self-confidence. I know I do. um, and anybody, if you don't, if you're a person that never has any negative thoughts about yourself, then, or negative thoughts in general, but negative thoughts about yourself is what we're talking about today, then amazing for you. That's awesome. And hi Phil, bonjour to you, my friend. Good to see you today. So if you don't have those negative thoughts, please feel free to come on in and tell me how the fact that you never have them, because my belief is we're all human and we also need both sides, right? We need the dark and the light to balance. Like, if we never had any negative thoughts and we only had positive thoughts, then how do we know we're only having positive thoughts? Anyway, that's a bit of a different discussion. So yeah, let's kind of like dive into it. So negative self-talk, very briefly, it's that conversation that goes on in your head. It can be quite extreme. I've noticed on doing some work on myself over the years that I was thinking today that my negative self talk is actually quite low in frequency, but it's definitely still there from time to time. So and that those kind of things can it can destroy your confidence before you've even started. So I guess we all know that. Okay, let's see. I just went swimming, right, in the sea this time of year. It's not too cold, but I do go all year round, and it does get cold. But I also know that when I started going swimming, and Phil's on here, and he knows about this as well. Hi Frank. Maintain a positive mindset. Easier said than done. Absolutely, absolutely, it's easier said than done. What we're going to talk about tonight is maybe a few ways that we become aware of it, and that we can maybe turn it around. So just saying have a positive mindset that's not what we're doing here. We're saying let's look at it, let's do our best to change. But it is, yeah, a positive mindset permanently. Oh, I mean, if you can do it, fantastic. That's perfect. So yeah, I was saying, the negative self talk can halt you in your progress before you even got to what you want to do. And I noticed this a few years ago, and Phil's on here, and he was part of this as well. We started going swimming in the sea all year round, and that's fine in summer like it is now. But when you get to winter, and we were going at 7 o'clock in the morning, when you get to winter in the UK, in the middle of February, at 7 o'clock in the morning when it's dark and windy and raining, then your negative self-talk, or one's negative self-talk, starts before you've even got out of bed. It starts the minute the alarm clock goes off, or even before that, when you go to put the alarm clock on the night before. And that negative voice in your head starts then, before you've even got down to the water. So, or if you can relate this to an event with yourself, your negative self-talk can talk you out of this, of something, before you've even started. Luckily, we had a group of people that we'd all get each other and say, "Come on, let's go," and make each other accountable, which is one way that you can kind of get around it. But all I'm really saying in this instance is that negative self-talk can stop you in what you want to do before you've even done what you want to do, or even attempted to do what you want to do. So aware. So with that in mind, also that we remember that it's a continuous loop that's going on in our head, that we've grown. Okay, we weren't born with it. From the stuff I've read, stuff I've understood, the stuff I've learned, and from dealing with clients, it's something that we grow. And again, we're not going to get too much into that about how we grew it, because it's, through life. A lot of it, my understanding is, a lot of it was grown. Our thoughts and our thought patterns were grown before we were 7 years old, and then kind of we carried on, through life with those. So we don't want to get deeply into where that came from at the moment. We're just saying it's there. And we'll go into now a few things that we can do to kind of start stopping the negative stuff. Phil, yeah, Chimp Paradox is a great book for that, apparently. Okay, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, Monkey Mind is something that's, darting about from one place to the other, and yeah, Chimp Paradox, great book. So one thing I think it's all the one note I've written down here, which is very relevant as well, I think, is that your voice in your head, as well as it's having a negative side, it will switch and change, and the voice in your head is a bit of a kind of little bitch, really, to be honest, because it's happy to take both sides. Like, so you've got to be kind of aware of when it's being positive and when it's acting for you and when it's not acting for you, because you'll probably notice that your voice in your head will flip from side to side, depending on what suits it at the time. Like, do you want to go to the gym? I really think we should go to the gym. I don't know if we should go to the gym. Maybe it would be better if we just went off and had, something to eat and something not very healthy. Yeah, but you really need to go to the gym. And that's like the conversation that goes on inside your head. So this voice in your head will flip. It's a bitch. It will take both sides. So it is important to, and I just said something then I'm going to go back on in a minute. So it is important to be aware that it will take both sides. So, without us wanting to be on here all night, what I'm going to do is dive into a few things that I've found with myself and working with other people, and through stuff that I've learned, read, studied, and all that kind of thing, are helpful to kind of break the cycle of negative talk in your mind. So, very first thing, with anything that we do in this kind of realm, this kind of frame, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot because it is awareness. And the reason I talk about awareness is a lot is until we bring awareness to something, it's on subconscious program. Okay, so there are programs and talk. The negative self-talk is going on and on and on in our minds. A majority of it through the daytime. There's a huge amount of thoughts through the daytime that are subconscious. I think it's 96 or 97%, something like that. So until we bring awareness to the fact that we're listening, we're having some understanding, we're paying awareness to our negative self-talk, that's kind of the first stage. The first stage is, okay, maybe for the next day or so, I'm going to just bring a bit of awareness to my negative self-talk and try and, shine a light on what's going on. Now, sometimes you understand it, and it's you can hear it, and other times it's just going on in the background. And it can be very damaging, as I said before, because it has a charge in the body, and that can have a negative effect. So when we bring awareness, the next thing that I found effective that we can do is to break the chain. And breaking the chain is just about understanding that thought, having awareness to it, and then just stopping. And just stopping that for the moment, or in the moment, just stopping that thought pattern. It's not something you have to do physically, but it's the next stage of bringing awareness to your negative thought pattern. Sorry, just reading the notes. David, hey David, well done. Positive voice in our head will keep us on a happy track. Dave and Pat, nice to have you here. Yeah. So yeah, breaking the chain. So bringing awareness to what's been said first of all is one thing, and the next thing we can do is to break the chain. And breaking the chain is as easy as just being aware. And I'm going to skip forward here because I've written something a bit lower down, but what I think is important to say at this time as well is that once we break the chain, that we don't then start berating ourselves or piling on more negativity. So if you hear your voice in your head go, "Oh my God, you're such a dickhead. Why did you say that? Like, what's wrong with you? You know better than it." And all these things, that you say to yourself in your head, that we then brought awareness to, we stop and make the chain. We don't then want to pile in and go, "Oh, why did you do that? Why are you saying that to yourself?" Because you're then going back into adding negativity on top of what's already there. So if you do, if we have a look over the next few days and start listening to this awareness, I'm going to offer to you that, when you hear that voice in your head, that's maybe giving you some negativity, to not then go on top of it and make it bad. To just be aware. One thing I found that worked for me and with some of the clients I work with is that you just say thank you and let it go and move on. And that's just part of breaking the chain. The next step on from that I found that works really quite effectively is to start a conversation with the voice. And that is, so you're taking that extra dimension and that extra power away from it. Like I said, the voice does flip and flop, but if you're consciously starting a conversation with the voice in your head, I know it sounds a bit weird. Don't worry, I haven't lost it. I know, but to start a conversation with your head, so that in your head with the voice. And so how might that work? That might work like you hear yourself say, "Oh, why are you so stupid? Why did you do that?" So the conversation is, that's interesting. Well, like in your head, where did that come from? Like, why are you saying such a thing? And then just try to take the power, bring the awareness. So this brings the awareness, it breaks the chain, and it kind of takes a bit more power away from that voice in your head when it's starting to, give you all those negative thoughts. So you're then kind of bringing some light you're bringing some light and making and opening up a conversation. And I think it's important to really bring it at this time, as before, we talked about most of these thoughts and processes potentially started before we're 7 years old, to not start really berating ourselves for having this negative thought, because a lot of that really is kind of it's an inner child thing. It's inner child thought, and you wouldn't, if a child was doing something wrong, you wouldn't start yelling at that child. I mean, we do yell at our children, but you know what I mean. You're more likely to do something nurturing. So nurture yourself. If you hear your voice being negative with you, instead of being hard and being negative with that voice, nurture yourself. Start up a conversation. I have heard. I didn't write this down as one of my notes, but I have heard people say that. I'm just checking the comments here. People say that you should say it out loud. Now, I don't know about that. I've never tried that to see if that works. But I imagine if you started saying it out loud, either someone would collect you and take you away, or that it might work, and the kind of ridiculousness of saying out loud what's being said in your head might actually work. I don't know. That's something I haven't really explored and tried, but happy for to share that with you, and for somebody here to let me know how it goes. I might suggest, depending on what you're saying to yourself, that you don't say it too out loud in public if it's not very nice, kind, or something that you can share when you're sitting on the train or on the bus or standing at a bus stop. Maybe you shouldn't start yelling your thoughts out loud in your head out loud. But who knows, right? Who knows? Give it a try. Maybe it'll work for you. Hi, Louise. How you doing? Nice to have you here live. Again, anybody else who's live or is watching, just come and say hi. So we brought awareness. We are breaking the chain, starting a conversation with the inner voice, and we're not making it bad. We're treating it like our inner child, and we're being nurturing and caring to that inner voice. So another strategy that I have worked with and I know that takes a lot of power away from a negative voice, and that is to give your negative voice a name. Now, you can play with this, um, and in my experience, the the best thing to do, and you can play around with this, is to give your if a negative in a voice. Remember, that's what we're dealing with. It's obviously the positive one. Hey, great, but it's not going to be there all the time. I don't think so, anyway. Mine certainly isn't. So you can give your inner voice a name. In my experience, again, the more humorous the name you give your inner voice, then the more power is taken away from that inner voice. So again, not humorous in a negative way. So give your if you want I can't tell you what that is to you, what it means to you, but if you give your inner voice when you're bringing awareness to it, a kind of humorous name, then what you're doing is taking the power away from the mindset and the negativity. So I'm sure you can kind of take that thought and find something humorous to call your to find something humorous to call your inner voice. So how am I doing so far? Does that make sense to everybody? Someone comment. Have you got any comments on that? Anything you want me to clear up? Tell me if I'm rambling. Because I've got a couple more things. Oh God, it's 20 past already. These things go quick, right? So one more thing. So and now we've brought awareness. We've broken the chain. We started a conversation. We're not making it bad. We're treating it like an inner child. We've given it a name. One thing. The next stage is to just replace the thought. Glenn, thanks very much. Glenn is saying it makes sense. Glenn, I know, is qualifying in NLP. So if you don't know what that is, neuro-linguistic programming. And Glenn does mindfulness as well. So, he's got some knowledge on the subject as well. So, the last thing I'm going to say is to take a moment. This is not going to be possible all the time, right? And I get that. And this isn't about happy thoughts. But the next stage is to replace the thought. So just not temporarily, in the moment, replace the thought with something else. And all we're doing by replacing the thought, so these negative thoughts all go through a neural pathway. We're breaking down the neural pathway. It was the same way that we grew a negative loop. We can grow it through our neural pathways. We can grow, this is what I understand, we can grow a new one. Because we grew these pathways in the first place, and we can grow new ones. There's a lot of information out there today about your brain and is neuroplasticity. Your brain is changeable these days, and we can work with that and we can change it. So once you've broken down, you've done all those things we've said, given it a name. In that moment, you can replace the thought with something else. So I'm not talking about sitting there and saying, "Isn't life wonderful? Everything's going to be great. This is amazing." It's not about that. It's just about bringing something, replacing it with a happier thought, a little bit of gratitude, a little bit of something you're grateful for, a little bit about somebody you're compassionate for, a little thought about something that's positive in your life. And so you're starting to break down the thought process, and at the same time, you're starting to create a new thought process. And I'm just going to check down in the comments over here. Okay. Right, Phil, love this. When I first went alcohol free, the first thing I did was draw a picture of my booze monster that had a voice. I could talk to him and kept him in my pocket for the first few weeks. So Phil's recently kicked the booze. Not that he had booze in a bad way, but he did exactly that. He sort of gave his, the alcohol thing, a character, if you like. And Glenn says do a reframe. Yeah, you can absolutely do a reframe. So and I call it a kind of state change as well. So all of those things are positive. It's not talking about all of a sudden you have to start happy thinking. It's not about that. It's about your state change. Or like Glenn says, it's about your reframe. You can, in the moment, just reframe your thought. State change, get out of your, oh, this is, massive, a negative cycle, and put your state change into a positive cycle. If you're out and about, something that's really worked for me is thinking about giving a good wish, a good thought to a stranger in the street. And I know it sounds a bit like you don't say it to them because you're not crazy and they're going to think you're crazy. Just inside your head, just give a positive thought to a stranger. And that for me has been a huge game changer in something that you can just do if you catch yourself, and then just give some. And on top of that, you're giving somebody else some positivity and some positive energy they don't know about. They're never going to know about it. But I found it a really good way of changing your state and reframing where your mind is as well. So, two things just to end up because we're on about time. Dropping in questions if you've got them right now because I'm just about to do a couple of things and then sign off. State changes, Glenn, definitely. We'll talk about that after. Anyway, so two things. I'm going to set you. We did a 24-hour challenge about not being judgmental about people externally. So we're going to set you a 24-hour challenge now. Anybody who's on this live or on the replay, just be aware for the next 24 hours. Bring that first thing, that awareness, to the voice in your head, and find out for yourself if it's negative or mostly positive. Maybe it is. I hope for you it is. But if it's negative, and find out what it's talking about. Have a chat with it. Start a conversation. Don't make it bad. Treat it like an inner child. Give it a name. Frank, Fred, whatever. Bill. There can be some girls' names there. Whatever you want to call it. But just give it a name, and then start replacing it. Thought. If you're going to do a state change, if you're going to replace the thought with something else, some compassion, some positivity, reframing, whatever works for you. If you're going to do that, either now you're watching live or on the replay, put 24-hour challenge in the comment box. I'd also really like to hear from you as you go through the next 24 hours as to what happened. Or even the next week, I don't care, whatever works for you. If you want to be accountable in this group, that's what it's here for. I think that's quite enough talking for me on this tonight. But Phil says, yeah, that's beautiful with a stranger. Okay, just to cover off, this thing with the stranger is something that you can do. Okay, you can just try it. Just walk down the street and just send other people some happiness. So don't start grinning at them weirdly, because that doesn't work. Keep it inside your head. Okay, but just walk down the street, and I guarantee if you walk down the street and you start giving good thoughts to other people, you won't get 100 meters until your state's changed. Try it and let me know how you get on, but don't get weird. Okay, I think apart from that, so yeah, 24-hour. Be aware of your thoughts. If you want to add in giving some love to other people in the street, that works as well. Last thing before I go, if you any of this, what you've heard in the group, what you're working with at the moment, if you want to investigate that further, and there's something that maybe we can do together, then I'm happy to jump on a quick 10-minute call with you. We can have a chat. We can find out what's going on. We can find out if I can do something. All you have to do is DM me 10 minutes, or you can drop the call in here. Drop it in here. Just write 10 minutes, and I'll get back to you, and we'll work that out. Anyway, I've got to go because I've got to get on one of those 10-minute calls right now. So thanks very much for everybody for joining in. Just going to check the comments. So yeah, all done. Thanks very much, and have a great 24 hours, and let me know how you get on. Okay,